How's it going, everybody? C-RadTV back here in another video. So, of course, the 2024 NFL Draft has officially come and gone. The draft has come and gone. It was a record-breaking draft in Detroit. It was a draft I was in attendance for all 3 days. I have 3 vlogs out for it. So if you want to go watch the vlogs and see what the draft experience was for me being there in person, go check the vlogs out and come right back here. But yeah, fun experience overall. So, of course, the Lions, another draft for the Lions is come and gone. We had another Brad Holmes masterclass. As now we have 6 new players we get to welcome into the One Pride, into the Lions roster. So, we'll take a look at these 6 players and see how they fared and what to expect out of them. So, let's go. So the first player we're going to go over here, taken with the 24th pick in the first round of the 2024 NFL Draft, hailing out of Alabama, standing 6 feet tall, weighing 189 pounds. We got Terrion Arnold. So for Terrion Arnold at corner, so in his college career with Alabama, he had 108 career tackles, 20 pass deflections, 7.5 tackles for loss, 6 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 forced fumble. He was an AP first-team All-American in 2023. He was also part of the All-SEC first team in 2023. Was tied for 5th with 17 pass deflections in 2023. Tied for 6th with 5 interceptions in 2023. His PFF grade in 2023 was 88.3. He was also tied for 11th in 2023 with 14 forced incompletions. And his PFF coverage graded last in 2023 was 84.9. It's also the second consecutive year that the Lions have drafted a defensive back. Alabama, of course, last year they drafted Brian Branch out of Alabama. He's also the 4th Alabama defensive back selected by the Lions since at least 1970. He's also the first corner the Lions have selected in the first round since the Lions took Jeff Okudah 3rd overall in 2020. And he's the 4th corner selected by the Lions in the first round since at least 1994. And with the Lions taking Terrion Arnold in the first round, this is also the first time in franchise history that the Lions have selected from a player from the same college program in the first round of the draft in 3 consecutive years in a row. 2022, the Lions took Jamison Williams 12th overall out of Alabama. Last year, they took Jahmyr Gibbs 12th overall out of Alabama. And now this year, they take Terrion Arnold 24th overall out of Alabama. If anyone's wondering about where's Brian Branch in all this, well, Brian Branch wasn't a first-round pick. He was a second-round pick, 45th overall. So yeah, he doesn't get to be part of that 3-straight club. He gets an honorable mention, though, because the Lions did take him last year. So, yeah, and of course, Terrion Arnold, he used to be teammates with Brian Branch in college last year, so Terrion gets to reunite with his old boy. Of course, Terrion has a lot of comparisons to Marshawn Lattimore, which was a player the Lions were rumored to be going after in a trade in the offseason, but now I guess those trade talks are now gone. But, does a lot of things right. True lockdown corner in college. Locked out some pretty good receivers in college. Going to be dependent on here to become our number 1 corner to cover some of the top receivers of the game. Because if you look at the Lions' schedule this year, they're going to have a gauntlet of receivers to go through. Let me name some big-name receivers they got to deal with. Just look at the Bears with DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. You got the Vikings with Justin Jefferson. You got the Packers with Christian Watson. You got the 49ers with Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. Maybe because Ayuk might be traded. We'll have to see. You also got the Seahawks with DK Metcalf. You got the Rams with Puka Nacua. You got the Cardinals with Marvin Harrison Jr. Also, look at the Texans. You got both fucking Stephon Diggs, and you got Tank Dell. And with the Bills, you now got Keon Coleman there. The Lions are going to be facing some really good receivers this year. Of course, also mentioned Buccaneers with Mike Evans, and you also got the Cowboys with CeeDee Lamb. This is why the Lions needed to address corner. It was a massive need. Because I'll be honest, corner was the main weakness on this Lions team. And I'll be honest, I think the Lions' lack of corner depth was one of the main reasons that cost the Lions a shot at going to the Super Bowl last year. Especially when you had a ball ricochet off Vildor's helmet right into Brandon Ayuk's hands near the goal line in the NFC Championship game. But yeah, big need to address here. Like, the Lions are pretty much looking at that NFC Championship game last year and making sure a situation collapse like that doesn't happen ever again. A massive need the Lions need to address, and he was one of the top players on the Lions board available, and they had to trade up to get him. Even leapfrogging the Packers, because I think it was safe to say the Packers wanted Terrion Arnold. And the Lions leapfrogged him to get their guy, to get the guy. But yeah, Terrion Arnold, and if anyone's wondering, yes, the crowd reactions for him were as loud as you think it was, especially with me at the draft. Just watch the day one vlog, and you could hear how loud it was. Like, the reaction Terrion Arnold got, it's so loud, you probably could hear it from 5 miles away. Like, it was just so fucking loud. Like, it's one of the loudest pops I think you'll ever hear at the draft in Detroit. But yeah, overall, really good pick. Really like this pick. I was very high on Terrion Arnold coming in the draft. Like, I'll be honest, when I was saying the Lions would probably have to trade up for him, I thought they would have to trade up somewhere in the teens to get him, but they were able to get him at 24, which is an absolute steal. But part of that also was because we had the first 14 picks were all offensive players, which forced all the good defensive players down the board because everyone invested so heavily on offense. But yeah, overall, really good selection, like it. So yeah, Terrion Arnold gonna be the number one, the cute corner one for the foreseeable future, and that helps secure that secondary, makes that secondary even more loaded. You know, having Terrion join the likes of both of Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, and Fatu Melifonwu, the young nucleus we built in that secondary. Like, the Lions secondary is easily becoming a no-fly zone. So, in the next player we're going to go over here, we have hailing out of Missouri, taken with the 61st pick in the 2024 draft. Standing 5'11", weighing 183 pounds, we got defensive back Enos Rakestraw Jr. So for Enos in his college career with Missouri, he had 107 total tackles, 24 pass deflections, 8 tackles for a loss, 3 forced fumbles, an interception, and a sack. His PFF grade in 2023 was an 80.7. Now it's an overall one. But his run defense PFF grade in 2023 was an 89, which is actually pretty good. He was tied for third in the SEC in 2022 with 12 pass deflections. In 2023, per PFF, he allowed a completion percentage of only 58.8% when targeted. So he did a pretty good job of locking down his receiver when he was targeted. Only giving up the ball, only giving up plays 50% of the time. So it's 50-50. Either he gives up the play or he doesn't, which is pretty good. He had 2 forced fumbles in 2022, which is tied for second most in 22 among all SEC defensive backs. He's also the highest selected player the Lions have drafted out of Missouri. He's also the third Missouri player selected by the Lions since at least 1970. The first since the Lions selected Demetrius Johnson back in 1983. Also, this is the first time the Lions have drafted 2 corners in the same draft since 2017. And it's the first time the Lions have selected 2 corners in the first and second round since 1997. And this is also now the second consecutive year that the Lions have selected a defensive back in the second round. Of course, last year the Lions selected Brian Branch in the second round last year. Mainly because Branch declared as a safety, and safety is not a sexy position in the draft. And this is also the first time in the Super Bowl era that an NFL team has selected 2 corners with their first two picks in a given draft. So Lions making history at the draft with Enos Rakestraw Jr. So, of course, Enos, he's expected to be corner 2 to help lock down the secondary even more because Carlton Davis, even though the Lions acquired him, Carlton only has 1 year left on his contract, so he's more just a rental guy that I think is just a bridge guy until Enos Rakestraw is ready to start and ready to come in. You know, could go nickel, could play a lot in a couple different positions in the secondary. But definitely will be locking down the corners with Terry and Arnold for the future and helping out the secondary with Brian Branch, Afatu Melifonwu, and Kirby Joseph as well. There was a reason why the Lions went back-to-back corners here. It's because they needed to. Because it was a massive weakness last year. Like I mentioned with Terry and Arnold, the secondary with how bad it was last year and the lack of depth on there, that was one of the main reasons why the Lions didn't make the Super Bowl last year and why they blew a 17-point lead. And why a ball ricocheted into fucking Terry and Arnold into Brandon Ayuk's hands off a surefire interception bouncing off the helmet. Lions needed to address their weakness, and honestly, with back-to-back picks here and how much they invest in the offseason, with them bringing in guys like Amik Robinson and Carlton Davis, the secondary has gone from a weakness to now a strength. So yeah, Brad Holmes was able to address that, and the crazy thing was that Enos Rakestraw's interview with the Lions was the same time and day as Terry and Arnold's interview with the Lions. So that's pretty interesting, and honestly, I thought he would have gone a little higher, but he fell right to the Lions' lap, so pretty good pick there by the Lions. Lions now have their secondary locked up for the foreseeable future. And all the Lions had to do for it was trade away both their third-round picks this year to lock up their secondary in the future. So yeah, the Lions took both their third-round picks this year and turned them into Terry and Arnold and Enos Rakestraw Jr., 2 starting corners for the next few years. So yeah, that's pretty good work by Brad Holmes. Great masterclass there. The secondary has easily become a no-fly zone in the 3-1-3. Especially with the gauntlet of receivers the Lions are going to have to contend with this year. On a lot of teams, this was a good move to lock that down. So yeah, very good move here. So the next player we're going to talk about from the draft class here, taken with the 126th overall pick, hailing out of the University of British Columbia up in Canada, standing 6'8", weighing 350 pounds, we got Canadian Giovanni Manu. So for Giovanni, he played 38 games in college for the University of British Columbia. He was on the All-Canadian second team in 2023 and in 2022. On his pro day, he ran a 4.96 40-yard time and had a 33.5 vertical inch jump. He's the first player from the University of British Columbia to be selected in the NFL draft. Fourth player from the Canada West University Athletics Association to be selected in the NFL draft. Of course, the other 3 being defensive tackle David Onyemata from Manitoba in 2016, Akeem Hicks with Regina, Saskatchewan in 2012, and then Brian Fryer from Alberta in 1976. He's also the highest selected tackle the Lions have selected in the draft since the Lions took Penei Sewell 7th overall in 2021. And he's the first tackle selected in the 4th round by the Lions since the Lions selected Jason Fox back in 2010. So yeah, of course, he hasn't played football, only been playing football for a few years, extremely raw. But in the college tape that we've seen from him in British Columbia, he's shown a lot of promise for sure, A lot of people, there have been a lot of experts that say that if anybody gets Giovanni Manu, if the Lions get him, then the sky's the limit. And I feel like, the Lions roster, Brad Holmes and company have done a great job constructing this roster really well to where at this point, it's kind of a luxury pick here in the 4th round. He's definitely a project for sure. Definitely a project O-lineman to help strengthen the O-line, very high-risk pick, but with the way the Lions have constructed the way this O-line has been, high risk, but very high reward. Very high ceiling, the sky's the limit. And I think if there's a chance that Giovanni Manu becomes very hit, it will be here because he'll be getting a chance to learn behind the best O-line in football at the Lions, and he'll get a chance to be mentored by the best offensive tackle in the game in Penei Sewell. And we all know that's the case, especially when Penei just got the big Brinks truck backed up for him just last week with that payday. Yeah, and it's very tough to say what Giovanni could go to on the O-line. If he could go to guard, because, Glasgow's only around for a couple years. Zach Center only stayed around for a year. I feel like he could go to right tackle, and here's why. Because with the Lions giving paydays to Amon-Ra St. Brown and Penei Sewell, Jared Goff's going to be due a payday in the future. You'd also add in the guys like Hutchinson and Laporta and all that. Which means the Lions are going to get pretty close to the cap pretty soon, which means somebody's going to be the odd man out here. And I'm going to be honest, I think the odd man out in this situation is going to be Taylor Decker. I think Decker may become a cap casualty in the future. So it's best to just get potentially Decker's replacement/successor set up here. And, Giovanni, he could go to right tackle in the future, and they could move Penei Sewell to left tackle when Decker's contract is up. Because right now, I believe the longest tenured Lion right now is Taylor Decker. Because Decker's been around for like 8-9 years. Holy crap. I can't believe he's been around for that long. Fuck. But yeah, definitely a project here, extremely raw, but I think if he has the chance to learn and develop and become a great tackle in this league, I think Detroit's definitely that place to be, especially with the culture the Lions have built and how this roster is. I think the sky's the limit for Giovanni Manu. It may take a couple years for him to reach his potential, but I think this is definitely, someone I'd be happy, something to keep an eye on here. And I think the sky's the limit for him, and I think he's in the best position to succeed. It's all on him and the Lions to get that max potential out of him. So yeah, I think it's a really good pickup here for the Lions. So the next player we're going to go over here, taking with the 132nd pick in the draft. Hailing out of Utah, standing 5'11", weighing 210 pounds, we got Sion Fakhi, who's a running back / safety. Well, he looked like a safety at first, but he declared as a running back at the draft. So, has some versatility here. So, his college career is pretty interesting. So, in his college career as a safety, he had 92 total tackles, 12 tackles for a loss, 5 pass deflections, 2 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. But last year as a running back, he had 42 carries for 317 yards, averaging 7.5 yards a carry, with 2 rushing touchdowns. And then in terms of receiving, he had 11 receptions for 203 yards, averaging 18.5 yards per catch, with 3 receiving touchdowns. So 5 total touchdowns last year as a running back on offense. He made the All Pac-12 first team in 2023. He was tied for 10th in Pac-12 with 7.5 tackles for a loss during conference play. Also in 2023, he's the first Pac-12 player since 2014 to record a sack and a receiving touchdown all in the same game. His overall PFF grade in 2022 was a 79.5, sorry. He's the first running back out of Utah ever selected by the Lions. The first offensive player selected out of Utah by the Lions since the Lions took guard Gordon Jolly back in 1971. It's the highest selected player out of Utah selected by the Lions since the Lions took tackle Greg Dent, 92nd overall in the 1965 draft. And he's the first running back selected in the 4th round by the Lions since the Lions selected Artos Pinner in 2003. So it's really tough to say where he fits in here because we're kind of set on running back right now with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Because everyone's going to be wondering, where does he fit in all this? Because at running back, we're set right now with Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. And the secondary set too, because with safeties, we got like Avatu Melifonwu, we got Kirby Joseph, and we got Brian Branch, and we got our 2 new corners and Enos Rakestraw Jr. and Terrion Arnold. But I think where he may fall in here is special teams. Because I think the Lions do need a kick punt returner. So he could go into special teams as a kick or punt returner. Or maybe go on special teams to go after the other team's kick and punt returner. Because now you can't really call fair catch. You can't call fair catches anymore with the new kickoff rules. So you actually got to return the ball and run it. Especially with the NFL's new kickoff rules this year. So could become so I think he'll be a special teams player for kick and punt returns, since now that matters once again. So he'll be a feast for David Fitt's offensive system. I mean, special team system. I don't know. He could maybe go to running back and be RB2 behind Jahmyr Gibbs, or be a gadget offensive player for a couple of trick plays for Ben Johnson's offense. You know, it'll be interesting to see where he falls in here. I think he's gonna be a special teamers, but some crazy shit has happened before. But very interesting player here. Did pretty good as a defender. Was very productive as an offensive player. So, very interesting where he falls. I think he ends up as a special teamers for kick and punt return. So yeah, very interesting to see how Sion Vaki fares here. Because special teams does matter here, especially on when you go to day 3. So yeah, if everything pans out, I think the Lions got their kick, punt / punt returner of the future for special teams right here. So the next player in this draft class we're going to go over here, taken with the 189th pick in the draft, hailing out of LSU, standing 6 feet tall, weighing 284 pounds. We got defensive tackle Mekhi Wingo. So for Mekhi's college career at LSU, he had 98 career tackles, 13 tackles for a loss, 8.5 sacks, 1 interception, and 1 forced fumble. He was presented with the number 8 with the 18 jersey number of 2023, which is given to the player that best represents the traits associated with LSU and its mission to graduate champions, which was something I actually didn't know about. I didn't know you'd get that. I didn't know that LSU just gives the 18 to just somebody that represents the best traits associated with the school. I thought it was just a number you're allowed to pick. I didn't know that about LSU. So yeah, hey, you learn something new every day, I guess. But before he had 18, his number was 92, for anyone wondering. He was an LSU team captain in 2023. His overall PFF grade in 2023 was a 77.6. He was on the AP All-American third team in 2022 and was on the All-SEC second team in 2022. And his overall PFF grade in 2022 was a 78.5. First defensive player the Lions have selected at LSU since the Lions took defensive end Collis Temple in 1974. Fourth highest selected player by the Lions out of LSU since at least 1970. And he's the first defensive tackle the Lions have selected in the 6th round since 2020. So yeah, overall, pretty good pass rusher. Could be a run stuffer too. Like, I'll be honest with Mekhi, I think he's a rotational piece for the D-line. Take some reps in whenever we need to take a Liam McNeil out or DJ Reader out to get some rest. Maybe bring him down for passing downs to go get after the quarterback in case Hutchinson gets double teamed again. Because you can't just double team everybody on the D-line, so it could send him after there. I mean, with his size, though, you could potentially maybe move him to the other edge rusher spot, too. I think definitely a rotational piece for sure for the D-line. Could become a starter when DJ Reader's contract goes up. But, for now, I think he's definitely a rotational piece for the D-line. Could has the ability to stuff on the run, can also sack the QB and get some pass rush here. Because the Lions definitely need to get some pass rushers on the D-line, because Hutchinson can't do it on his own. But yeah, I think definitely a good pickup here to get some depth on the D-line. Make that D-line a strength, since the game is always won and lost in the trenches. So yeah, get some rotation in there, get some depth here. Like, honestly, a lot of these picks in the 3rd and day 3 are some pretty solid depth pieces for the rotation. So yeah, I think overall a good selection here by the Lions to get him out of LSU. I was pretty high on him entering the draft. So yeah, pretty good pickup here. And the final Lions draft pick we're going to go over here, taken with the 210th overall pick. Hailing out of Boston College, standing 6'3", weighing 314 pounds, we got guard Christian Mahogany. So for Christian in his career at Boston College, he started in 34 games at Boston College. Played 23 games at right guard, 11 at left guard. So even though he has more experience on the right side of the line, he can play left side too. So he can play any side of the interior O-line. He was on the All-ACC first team in 2023. Also in 2023 per PFF, he didn't surrender a sack or a QB hit in 422 pass blocking snaps. His pass blocking PFF grade in 2023 was a 92.3, so he's very good at protecting the QB and getting the protection the QB rightfully needs. to succeed. He was also on the All-ACC second team in 2021. His overall PFF grade in 2021 was an 82.7, but he got better as the more games he got in college. In 2021 he allowed only 1 sack and 330 pass blocking snaps. He's the first interior O-lineman from Boston College ever selected by the Lions in the draft. Fourth O-lineman ever selected from Boston College by the Lions. And he's the first interior O-lineman selected in the 6th round by the Lions since 1985. So, brings a lot of O-line depth in here. And, in terms of the secondary, in terms of, the O-line depth chart, could go to left guard or right guard. Could go either side of the line. Because, keep in mind, Zach Center, who we got from the Ravens in free agency, he only signed a 1-year deal with the Lions this year. And plus, you got to factor in Frank Ragnow's health issues, too. Because Frank Ragnow has had some health issues the last couple years, and there have been rumors that he could possibly be forced to retire if he can't stay healthy any longer. So if Ragnow goes down again, the backup center would be our current right guard, Graham Glasgow, as Glasgow would slide to center. And then that could be where Mahogany goes, or maybe Colby Schultzdale, who we got last year in the draft, could go in that guard spot, either him or Mahogany. Mahogany brings some depth too, for pass blocking downs. Could be the piece that helps get some protection for Jared Goff. So Goff has more times to sling that rock out there to the likes of Amon-Ra and J-Mo, and etc. Definitely, I think a very solid pickup for the Lions here. Again, Mahogany was very good in the pass blocking game. Could do some damage in the run game as well. Very solid pickup by the Lions. He just seems to get better the more comfortable he gets. And he has that versatility for the O-line, can play any spot in the O-line. So yeah, in the draft here, the Lions have responded pretty well to the Penei Sewell extension, and have quietly and sneakily, if that's even a word, but yeah, the Lions have quietly retooled and rebuilt their O-line on the fly, without anyone realizing it. As the Lions O-line, which is the biggest strength, the best area on this team, their strength continues to get even stronger. So yeah, anyway, that wraps it up for this Detroit Lions draft class recap for 2024. So one more time, let's read all the names in this draft class. So, Terrion Arnold, Enos Rakestraw Jr., Giovanni Manu, Sion Vaki, Mekhi Wingo, and Christian Mahogany. Welcome to these 6 names to the Lions 1 Pride and the 313. So overall, I think it was a pretty good draft class. Once again, it was another Brad Holmes masterclass. It was a common Brad Holmes W draft class. Motherfucker don't miss in the draft. Honestly, anyone that doubts Brad Holmes in the draft, honestly, all I say to those people is some people just need to learn when to shut the fuck up and let Brad Holmes fucking cook, god damn it. But yeah, Brad Holmes seeing the Lions off front office, they done a really good job addressing the roster and all the needs. They took the secondary, turned it from a weakness into a strength, got some good depth for the O-line, and they addressed special teams with Sion Vaki. And they also were able to retool their O-line on the fly with Manu and Christian Mahogany. I'm not going to give a draft grade out because that's what we've seen before. Draft grades mean absolutely fucking nothing until we see the actual product on the field. Just look at the Lions draft class last year as an example of how draft grades are meaningless. Because what was it? Last year, Lions draft class last year was the 8th ranked worst draft class by the media. And oh yeah, 1 year later, that draft class got rated the best draft class of 2023. Right there, all the proof you need that draft grades mean absolutely nothing until we see the actual product on the field. Plus, to be perfectly honest, you can't really properly assess a draft class until about 4 or 5 years down the line. But overall, I think the Lions and Brad and company, they did a really good job. Honestly, a lot of moves the Lions made, they made a lot of moves you make to go win a Super Bowl. And I'm looking at this roster here, I think I think they're missing one, or I think they're a player or two away. But I do 100% think that this roster can go out and win a Super Bowl this year. I think they can go down to New Orleans to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I think the Lions did a good job. They addressed everything they need to, and I think this team's only going to get better as the years go on. Like, I'll say this. It will not take 30 fucking years to get back to the NFC Championship game. Because the Lions are going to get back there this year, and they're going to finish the job. And once again, I think the NFC North is once again Detroit's division to lose. Even though it's going to be a lot tighter this year with Green Bay. With Green Bay getting better as they walked into another franchise QB with Jordan Love. And the Bears are probably going to make some noise this year. I'm not worried about the Vikings at all, though. But yeah, it's going to be a tougher division, but I think this team can overcome that adversity. And all I say to everyone that doubts this team is, hey, anyone that questions it is, hey, anybody that doubts this team doesn't fucking know us. That's all I got to say there. And of course, it was a pretty good draft. It was a great experience being at the draft. I'm going to do a separate video about the draft overall, about my experience at the draft, though. But, it was just a great experience. It's something different for sure going to a draft for a change. But yeah, with the draft next year going to Green Bay, Wisconsin next year, 2025, the draft reactions will be coming back next year. I will not be going to the draft next year, but I'd say this, though. The draft, it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. It's a free event to attend. If you want to go attend it, then go do it. But anyway, that'll wrap it up here. And that's all I got to say. See you all later. I'm out.